Hello, and welcome to the Living Well Longer series. My name is Lisa Schneck, and I will be walking you through this presentation on nutrition for longevity and healing. So, the first thing that we need to do before we move into nutrition for longevity and healing is just kind of revisit what we know so far. So, what we know so far is that wellness is not a static state. Wellness is actually a continuum. And this continuum fluctuates from what would be premature death on the left there of the screen over to optimal health on the right. Neutral is right in the middle there, and that is absence from disease and dysfunction. When you're working with a professional and you're moving toward the left, you're going to be working with healthcare providers. They're going to be using services and medication in order to treat you and to be able to move you back over to the right. Conversely, if you're working from the neutral to optimal health, you're going to be working with a coach or a trainer or a therapist or something along those lines. They're going to be using whole food, movement, connection, sleep, rest, all of our wellness superheroes in order to move you then to the right on the continuum. So when we're looking at this continuum, where we are on the continuum is a blend of factors. There are the factors that we cannot control for. So that's our age, our sex, our race, our personal history, and so forth. Conversely, we have lifestyle factors that also will impact where we are along that continuum. And so when we're looking for ways to continue moving over to the right toward optimal health, if that is our focus, which of course it should be, then what we're going to be relying on, it's going to be our 5 wellness superheroes: connection, good food, sleep and rest, your mindset, your movement, being out in nature. All of these things will effectively help to move us to the right on the continuum. Now, conversely, over there to the left, we have a sedentary lifestyle. We have a lot of nutrient poor, calorie rich food over there. We have this lady who we can see is not sleeping well. We see the stress. These are very clear signs of which direction you are moving in. And so then if we just put all this together, we realize health is a spectrum. It is not a destination. Health is not binary. You are not simply sick or well. Wellness exists on this dynamic continuum. It's a spectrum that ranges from illness and dysfunction on one end through neutral functioning in the middle over to optimal wellness, resilience, and vitality on the other side. Where you are today is not where you'll always be. People move back and forth on this continuum throughout life. A diagnosis is not the starting point. It's often the middle of the process that's been unfolding for years. The good news: daily choices influence your direction more than any single event. Small, consistent actions compound over time, moving you toward greater resilience and function. The goal is not perfection. The goal is learning how to move rightward over time, building the knowledge, habits, and awareness that support your body's natural capacity to heal and thrive. The 5 wellness superpowers are the tools we use to navigate this continuum. Before we move into the superpowers, though, I'm going to take a moment and sit here and look at something that is super important when we're talking about nutrition for longevity, or when we're talking about living well longer, period. We have the interconnected triad of aging. This is how mitochondrial dysfunction, cellular senescence, and chronic inflammation sustain one another and cause us to age prematurely. So, to be clear, when we're talking about aging, there are many, many mechanisms that we could discuss. But at the end of the day, what they all come down to is the faltering of mitochondria, the creation of senescent cells. These are zombie cells. These are cells that are present, but they are misfunctioning, and they are secreting chemicals, molecules that will actually then begin to affect the health of the cells around them. And finally, the big one, the really, really big one that leads to our premature aging: chronic inflammation. Chronic inflammation further damages the mitochondria and accelerates the process. So these three start working together and they begin to take us out. The good news is we can absolutely do something about this interconnected triad of aging. And that's where our 5 wellness superpowers come to play. So we've talked about the 5 wellness superpowers for almost 2 years now. These are, if we took absolutely everything that we could effectively do to dictate where we are on that continuum, and as a matter of fact, to get us as far right on that continuum as possible. Whatever it is, it's going to fit into one of these 5 buckets. It's going to be your nutrition, which is actually what we're talking about today, your movement. The human body was made to move, and it must move in order for us to be healthy. The good news, through movement, we feel better. Sleep and rest, again, super important. This whole, I will sleep when I die, I only need 5 hours of sleep, the not wanting to enter sleep and rest because there's things that you feel like you need to do. Please understand, sleep and rest, super, super important to your health. And from their connections, our healthy relationships, these calm the nervous system, lower inflammatory signaling, social bonds literally strengthen immunity and resilience. And finally, the mindset. We're going to rewrite our pathways. We focus on what is positive, what is helpful, what we have control over. Right? Your thoughts become biological instructions that determine how well you will age. Now, we are focused today on nutrition, and where we want to start, the foundation is that food is not neutral. It's not just some innocuous sort of fuel that we're putting into our body whenever it tells us to. Now, that's the way it might seem, but we really don't want to approach nutrition in this way because every bite you eat is sending powerful signals throughout your body. Food is not simply fuel to burn. It's information, and it's communicating directly with your hormones. It's influencing inflammatory pathways. It's regulating metabolic function, and it determines your body's capacity to heal and regenerate. These nutrients, compounds, and even the timing of when you eat them trigger cascading biological responses that affect everything from cellular repair to mood regulation. Understanding this fundamental truth transforms how we approach nutrition, not as restriction or deprivation, but as an intentional communication with our biology. Now, when we talk about nutrition and we talk about wellness and we talk about fitness, especially in our country, we always seem to come back to this idea of body weight, weight health, the way that we look. It's great. It's great to look a certain way and to cut a nice silhouette. It's nice if you're not carrying around a lot of extra fat tissue, right? For many reasons. But at the end of the day, having a svelte body comes down to having done the things that you need to do for your body to be healthy. So a healthy body will not hold on to fat. It will not lower the metabolism. It will run effectively and efficiently. And it's very, very savvy at monitoring and adjusting all of the systems in your body. But there's a lot of them, right? So why nutrition matters beyond weight? Number one, your energy. If you are not eating well, if you are deficient in any particular supplements, your energy will not be sustainable. So your energy is going to go up and down. You're going to crash. You might be using caffeine. You might be using sugar. It just makes your day more difficult than it needs to be. If you're eating properly, fueling your body properly, you're going to feel so much better. Pain and inflammation is another one. So inflammation, we know, is one of those 3 primary catalysts of premature aging, of aging in general. When we're eating foods that do not work properly for our system, we will feel it. So we'll have full body, pain in the body, inflammation. You'll feel it in ligaments and tendons in your muscle. Autoimmune conditions come from this. That can be skin inflammation. That can be arthritis. You can absolutely answer to pain and inflammation through nutrition. Mood and focus is another super important. If you're not putting the right nutrition into your body, it will be incredibly difficult for you to have a clear mind, to be emotionally stable, and to have cognitive performance that you can depend on, and that will be resilient. Speaking of resilience, that's our fourth one, aging and resilience. When we're putting the right stuff in, we are enhancing cellular repair. Now that seems really basic, right? Enhancing cellular repair. This is fundamental. If our cells are not being repaired properly, we're in trouble, right? Fundamental. We want this to be occurring, disease resistance, and in functional capacity as we age. It's great to live to be 100. We want to be functional till we're 100 also, right? It's not just years, it's life. So one of the core principles we have here when we're looking at longevity and healing, we're still going back to that metabolic lens. Longevity, it's not going to begin with eating acai fruit or some other sort of superfood. You're not going to achieve it by starving yourself with intermittent fasting. Nothing wrong with intermittent fasting from time to time. We definitely know that it's beneficial. But what we do know beyond anything else is that the body is looking for stability. The metabolism needs to be stable. This is the foundation that allows every other system in your body to function optimally. So while we're not trying to be perfect with our nutrition, we don't want to continue to take extreme measures. We're sort of like a pendulum. We're doing something completely different, and we're knocking our system all around. This is about creating consistent, sustainable patterns that keep your body's energy systems balanced. This stability reduces stress on your organs, it minimizes inflammatory response, and it creates the conditions for natural healing and resilience. Your body's perfectly capable of doing seriously amazing things, but you have to fuel it properly. When your metabolism is stable, everything else becomes easier. Your energy, your focus, your recovery, and even emotional regulation improve naturally. So what does a stable metabolism look like? I can tell you that if you have a stable metabolism, you are either very aware of it or unaware completely. The reason being that's fundamental to everything else. So if you have an excellent functioning metabolism, and you always have, you probably wonder what all the fuss is about because you just feel good all the time. If you have had an unstable metabolism in the past, and now you're making changes to stabilize, you will certainly notice quite a few things. And these four are top of the list. Number one, steady energy. Imagine waking up, you feel refreshed, you feel rejuvenated, and then you have this consistent vital energy all throughout the day. You're not depending on caffeine or sugar. The energy feels earned, not borrowed. You have clear hunger cues. So your body sends reliable signals about when it needs food. The hunger builds gradually rather than hitting suddenly and with urgency. And you can distinguish true physical hunger from emotional hunger or just habitual eating. Better sleep. If you have stable blood sugar, you're going to have deeper, more restorative sleep. You're going to fall asleep more easily. You're going to wake up less throughout the night. And in the morning, when you wake up, you're going to have that energy there to greet you. It's reflecting that quality rest, reflecting the first half of your sleep where you are restoring your body, your physical body. And then that second half of sleep where we are processing emotions and memories are consolidated. Both are super important. And you have to treat that time for your sleep, make it consistent, and set yourself up for success because sleep is super important. Finally, less inflammation. So if you have a stable metabolism, you are not going to have the runaway joint pain that so many have. You'll get faster recovery from your exercise. You're going to have fewer digestive issues, a stronger immune response. Your body essentially is spending a lot less time fighting these internal fires and more time building resilience. So essentially, we're moving from that left side of the continuum over to the right. If we have to, we're going to treat what's on the left, but we want to move over and into more optimal levels of health. Now, what's going to cause us problems along the way? What's fighting us? At the end of the day, blood sugar is kind of the hidden driver of all of this, right? Most people don't realize how profoundly your blood sugar is fluctuating throughout the day. Your blood sugar rises in the morning. It will rise if you don't have enough sleep. It will rise if you are under stress. It is super responsive to your environment. And so we have to really take care. This isn't necessarily about just eating something sweet, although a blood sugar issue will lead to you eating things that are super sweet, super refined sugar. When you are experiencing this, the energy crash is a really clear way, especially if you've just eaten lunch and then you notice that your energy crashes and you're ready for a coffee. Having intense cravings, like you are really, really hungry, and especially for something that would be sweet or comforting. These cravings will come out of nowhere and they're almost impossible to resist. Afternoon fatigue, that's a big one. That mid-afternoon slump, being irritable and having difficulty concentrating, again, points right back to blood sugar, and then increased inflammatory markers throughout the body. This roller coaster is not a character flaw. It's a biological response to the foods and patterns that are driving glucose instability. And so what can we do then to rectify the situation? Where we're going to start right here with one of the biggest levers we can pull, and that's protein. Protein is the longevity nutrient. It's not optional. It's protective. For decades, protein was associated primarily with bodybuilders and athletes. But research continues to reveal that adequate protein, it's one of the most critical factors for healthy aging, metabolic function, and disease prevention. This is especially true for women. We are often underfed on protein, and for aging adults who face accelerated muscle loss without adequate intake, protein isn't about vanity. It's about vitality, independence, and longevity. So if we're taking a look at protein as the longevity nutrient, you can think of proteins as the building blocks of you. So every single component of you was created through protein. Now, where do we get protein? We're going to get it from meat sources, right? So animal sources of meat. We also get it from dairy, so especially like yogurt or kefir. You can get protein in beans, but they are also a bit high in carbohydrates, so keep that in mind. Same thing for bacon. Good bit of protein, but also a lot of fat, so it's a little different. We know protein is great for muscles and for strength. It is also super good for enzymes, your hemoglobin, your neurotransmitters, all of these different chemical messengers, your bone matrix, your ligaments and tendons, all made of protein, and essentially every single aspect of wonderful you, right, begins with protein. Protein is the building block of the human body. So we hit on these a bit, but I just want to go a little bit further into protein's role, extending far beyond building muscles. It's involved in virtually every biological process that keeps you functioning optimally. So our muscle and bone integrity, our immune function, this is a huge one, antibodies, immune cells, enzymes that fight infection, these are all made from protein. Inadequate intake weakens your body's defense systems. Finally, with blood sugar regulation, when you eat something with protein, there's a few things that happen. Number one, it's going to slow the absorption of glucose. So any sugar in that meal is going to hit the bloodstream a little slower, which causes your system to not freak out. And so it's not going to release as much insulin. Now, we need insulin released in order to get any nutrition into our cells. So insulin in and of itself is not a bad thing. It's certainly a wonderful thing. But what happens is when we don't have enough protein or even fat in our meal, and the meal that we're eating is high in sugar, there's nothing to kind of slow that sugar down. And the more refined the sugar is, then the faster it's processed through the body. So you can imagine digesting steel cut oats versus instant oatmeal. quite a big difference, right? In the one case, all of that sugar is hitting your bloodstream at one time. This panics the body, and so we release insulin, and then insulin, of course, removes a lot of sugar from the blood. It actually will remove more than what was there prior to you eating, and so now you are hungry and overnourished, or I should say overfueled and undernourished. Finally, craving control. When you're eating high protein meals, it increases fullness hormones, it reduces hunger signals, and naturally decreases cravings and the likelihood of overeating. So how do we approach this? Well, when we are putting food into our body throughout the day, I would tell you, ideally, use protein as the anchor of every single meal. So what you're going to ask for breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack, nighttime snack, where's the protein? So instead of building these meals around carbohydrates or even convenience, we start with the protein. This single shift will transform meal composition and metabolic response. So when protein anchors your plate, everything else falls into place more naturally. When we're, again, with the protein benefits, steadier blood sugar, longer lasting satiety, reduced reactive eating, better nutrient distribution across the day, improved body composition over time. So when we are approaching this, a person will want between 0.8 and 1 gram of protein for every pound of ideal body weight. So if my ideal body weight is 135 pounds, what I'm shooting for is about 135 grams of protein per day. Could I go a little less? I sure could. Could I go a little more? I guess I could if I really wanted to. That 135 is a good number to shoot for. Am I going to hit it every time? Absolutely not. But once you begin trying to navigate this, getting your protein in, you'll start to see how low your protein consumption was prior to beginning to integrate it. And that should really help to understand why our standard diet is just simply not delivering enough protein. Now, when we are older, when we are sick, when we are losing weight, even if we are learning something new, we need a little bit more protein. Okay. All right. So a critical insight. In the midst of all of this, inflammation is the aging accelerator. So it was one of our 3 catalysts of aging. We've talked about it a few different times, but inflammation is not in and of itself a bad thing. We need we need inflammation. It's how we fight infection. It's how we repair tissue damage. And when it resolves quickly, as soon as the threat passes, there's no problem. It's healthy and necessary. The difference is chronic inflammation. This is a low-grade fire that never fully extinguishes, slowly damaging tissues, accelerating cellular aging, and increasing disease risk. This persistent inflammatory state contributes to heart disease, diabetes, arthritis, cognitive decline, and even cancer. The foods you choose either fan the flames or help extinguish them. This isn't about perfection again. It's about shifting the balance toward healing and away from harm. So foods that fuel inflammation, these foods promote inflammatory pathways and metabolic dysfunction when consumed regularly. Notice the emphasis on patterns, not perfection. Occasional consumption is rarely the issue. So refined sugar, this is pretty obvious. I think everyone understands this. When you are eating refined sugar, you're eating things that are sweet and that hit the bloodstream very fast. It is just simply not good for your system. This is not the way that a human body is meant to be fueled. And so you're going to get these huge insulin spikes, which causes your body to stop wanting to react to the insulin, which means you need even bigger spikes. This is just increased oxidative stress. It's promoting those inflammatory cytokine production. So this is sort of like the SOS messenger within your cells. It's found in obvious and hidden sources throughout processed foods. So this is what we know about refined sugar. 9 times out of 10, it's you're eating something that's processed, right? I mean, it's not 9 times out of 10, it's 10 times out of 10. Refined sugar, this is a processed food. It's been stripped of everything that could be good for you and packaged in such a way that it will last for a long time. It's very easy to consume, really bad for you. From there, we're going to move into ultra processed foods. Now this, I'm going to be split just a little bit on ultra processed foods. So when we talk about ultra processed foods, we're talking about foods that a lot of hands have touched. So whereas a chicken breast would be a whole food, a chicken nugget or a chicken fry would be an ultra processed food. A lot of stuff has happened to this food, but not only have things happened to it, it's also typically going to have inflammatory additives, refined ingredients, and it lacks protective nutrients. It's engineered for overconsumption rather than for nourishment. Now, one place that I'm going to put a caveat here, when we talk about things like protein donuts, like the legendary donuts at they're available in most any grocery store, but these are really high protein. They're a donut. They don't taste like a donut. They're better, they are sweet and snacky, but they don't taste like a donut necessarily. But there's 20 grams of protein in there. We have protein powders, we have protein bars. These are ultra processed foods. But with any food, there's a trade-off. So if you're going to eat nothing but, and which is what we want, right? Nothing but whole, fresh foods, there will be a trade-off. And that's going to be convenience. It might be price. There are going to be some trade-offs. And knowing how important it is that we get that, in my case, 135 grams of protein, there's a trade-off here. If I tried to get that from Whole Foods, I would be walking around with a baggie of chicken breast. Right? It's not easy to eat that much whole food protein, but I know the benefits of the protein. And so then what I'm going to do is find a protein powder or a pre-mixed protein shake, maybe a protein bar. I've even in the evenings, I have a habit of having herbal tea with those protein donuts. Is it the absolute most ideal? No, it's not. But is it a good tactic? It is, because that's just how important protein is to our system. Moving into industrial seed oils, there's a lot of controversy and a lot of polarization about seed oils. We were told for a very long time that they're good for us. Now we're being told that they're terrible for us. And all of the way that the seed oils are created, it's not a pretty scene. I'm not going to get into any of that though. What I just want to speak to is that omega-6 fatty acids are primarily what are in seed oils. And in a lot of the other things that we eat in the standard American diet. The body needs omega-6 fatty acids. The problem is that it needs them in a specific ratio with omega-3 fatty acids. Now, if we want to simplify this, we'll just say omega-6 fatty acids are inflammatory. And as we already discussed, inflammatory does not necessarily mean bad. Out of control inflammatory is, though. So if we're getting all these omega-6 fatty acids and very little to no omega-3 fatty acids, that ratio is off. And now you've got that low-grade inflammation that I was talking about, just ongoing. We're going to add some omega-3s there. And then finally, number 4, excess alcohol. Another very polarizing thing to discuss, whether alcohol has any health benefits or not. I promise you it does not. That doesn't mean that you can't enjoy a cocktail. It just means that we're not going to say it's good for us when it's not, right? It disrupts your gut barrier. It increases inflammatory markers. It causes a break in your sleep architecture. Just one glass of wine can ruin your sleep for the night. And then from there, you just have this downstream series of effects that come from alcohol usage. If you're consuming alcohol regularly, there are micronutrients that are depleted by alcohol use. So you will almost certainly have a deficiency there. We'll talk a little bit more about supplements later. Alcohol is one of those things that I'm not going to tell you to stop drinking, just like I'm not going to tell you to never eat refined sugars, to never use omega-6 fatty acids, to never use ultra-processed foods. What I'm going to tell you is to approach this with wisdom and curiosity. So we know this stuff is not good for us. We know that it leads to premature aging. We know it leads to disease and dysfunction. We know it leads to waking up feeling terrible, right? And that's the sugar, the seed oils, the ultra-processed foods, and the alcohol. So just begin with a curious and compassionate awareness. When you use these foods, whenever you use alcohol, pay attention to how you feel. Pay attention over time, pay attention the next day, and pay attention when you don't use them. And over time, just the fact that you have this great information and then paying attention in the moment, this will enable you to begin to shift habits that you want to shift in ways that work for you. There's a certain amount of these things that we're trying to limit that brings us just the right amount of joy without really pulling us down into metabolic stress. Now, foods that calm inflammation. This is an anti-inflammatory diet. It's not restrictive, it's abundant. When we talk about eating a healthy diet, we're just simply talking about putting the stuff into our body that's meant to be there, that we're built from. It just seems kind of controversial, and people will say, I don't really like fruits and vegetables. It's kind of funny because these foods they're literally what we're made from. And so consuming them over time, you will begin to lose cravings for foods that are, high in sugar and processed and that sort of thing. So where we begin when we're talking about foods that calm inflammation, we're going to be looking at plant foods first. So we want all of these different colors, all of this different diversity, because in these plant foods, based on the colors and so forth, there's a whole different profile of nutrients that you get from these foods. So aim for a variety of different foods, so you're getting a variety of different nutrients. In addition to that, try to get 30 different plants in the week. So that does not mean that you have to eat 30 1-cup servings of different plant foods. It means just get a little variety, even if it's just a topping on your pizza. Get all of these different plants, try to get all different varieties, because that is also going to feed your gut microbiome. And that is another way that we seriously impact the inflammation in our bodies. Omega-3 fatty acids, I already talked about that. This is found in fatty fish, also walnuts, flax seeds, chia seeds. These fats actively resolve inflammation at the cellular level. And so with our American diet being so very high in omega-6s, then by kind of steering clear a little bit of the omega-6 sources and then upping your omega-3 just a bit, you can get closer to that 4-to-1 ratio that we're really looking for. Extra virgin olive oil, it contains compounds that will react within your body similar to ibuprofen. So it helps with anti-inflammation so much that it's right on par with an over-the-counter medication. And then herbs and spices. Different herbs and spices actually do have health benefits. A huge one is curcumin and black pepper. So curcumin is the active ingredient in turmeric. You put those together and the bioavailability goes up like 3,000%, I think. And this is as effective as an over-the-counter painkiller. Ginger, garlic, cinnamon, rosemary, these are all concentrated sources of anti-inflammatory compounds. Use them liberally. This will enhance both flavor and function, which moves us right to antioxidants. We're looking for balance, not eradication. So we've been hearing about antioxidants now for decades. What we do know is oxidative stress is normal, right? It's a byproduct of metabolism and cellular signaling. Your cells produce reactive oxygen species as a part of everyday energy production and immune function. This isn't inherently harmful. The problem arises when the stress becomes chronic and it's overwhelming your body's natural regulatory systems. So we know that one way to combat that is with all the plant foods that I was just telling you to eat. One of the things that they do provide are antioxidants, and the antioxidants allow us to calm inflammation. The problem is that in today's world, we can get antioxidants as these sort of mega supplements. So you can get 3,000 units of vitamin C or something crazy like that. We have to be careful not to overdo antioxidants. The idea of more is better does not work in nutrition. So there's a point of diminishing returns. There's also a point where things can go wrong. So if you're overusing antioxidants, you can actually deaden the response your body has to something like exercise. So, inform yourself, be aware of what is suggested for you to consume, and don't overdo it. Now, when we're talking about whole foods, you're very unlikely to overdo it. But when we get into supplements and using supplements with high dose, you can definitely overdo it. You can actually make yourself very sick with something as innocuous as vitamin C. And what this is telling us overall, right? You can be full and undernourished. So you can be overweight and have serious nutrient deficiencies. Actually, those two go together quite well. If you look at the screen and you look at this image and look along the right side, it's pretty obvious, I think, to anyone. There's very little, if any, nutrition here. But there's a lot of calories. So there's a lot of energy, but not all the stuff that we need. Then here on the left, we see all these fruits and vegetables and plant life, different colors. We could actually use a few more colors there. Common deficiencies. So we're going to be getting just a little bit into supplements here. And I just want us to be aware of deficiencies that are common even in our country. So even with this abundance of food, we can still have nutrient deficiency. These can occur for a few different reasons. We'll get into those a little bit more later, but a couple of vitamins to consider: vitamins and minerals. Vitamin D, this is crucial for immune function, bone health, and mood regulation. Any ladies who are suffering with osteopenia or osteoporosis, you should be supplementing with a vitamin D. If you are on a calcium supplement, please get with your doctor as soon as possible. Typically what we're finding is it is not a calcium issue. It's a vitamin D and even K2 issue. So the vitamin D is providing information to the body about what to do with this calcium that you're taking. Magnesium, super important. It's involved in over 300 enzymatic reactions. It's often depleted by stress. It's constantly being depleted by different things. It's relatively common in the US for people to be magnesium depleted. Omega-3s, these are essential for brain health and inflammation control. We know we just don't get enough of them in our standard diet. Supplementing with something like krill oil is a recommendation that I have. As we're talking about these supplements, I just want to add that going to the dollar store and buying some supplements, or going to Walmart or Target or wherever and buying supplements might be okay, might work out all right. I wouldn't do it. I suggest that you look for vitamins that have been third-party tested. What this means is that the manufacturer has asked for testing of their product to prove its efficacy and its purity. So they're paying extra for that, which means you will have to pay extra for their supplement. But at least you will know that it was properly sourced and it's going to be effective, and you're not wasting your money or your time or negatively impacting your health. B vitamins, super important to your energy production, your nervous system, and methylation. These are very important for anti-aging specifically. So those B vitamins, very common to have a deficiency, more so common if you are a regular drinker. Zinc, this is necessary for immune response and wound healing. You just want to be careful. Zinc can be snuck into various supplements and vitamin and mineral capsules and things like that. You do not want to overdo zinc. So 30 micrograms, 25 to 30 is what's recommended. You want to get those, but you do not want to go overboard. And you also want to be careful when consuming zinc. So supplementing with zinc, it can bind to medications, it can bind to other supplements. So be aware when you're taking zinc. And finally, fiber. This is for your microbiome health and regularity. It's also good for your mental health. We're going to get a lot more into fiber when we talk about probiotics and gut health. So when we're looking at the blood sugar strategy, right? So this would be the way to approach every meal, is to just understand that the way that you put foods together impacts the way that your body uses them. So if we're looking at this plate on the left here, we see the vegetables. They look like they're still crisp, so they haven't been cooked to the point that all the vitamins and minerals, all the good stuff has been leached out. We've got brown rice there. With rice, arsenic is the thing you have to worry about. And so we want to be specific. We want to be careful with where we're sourcing rice, and brown rice especially. So white rice has had the shell removed. And that is where a lot of the nutrition is, but it's also where the arsenic tends to be. So be careful when sourcing rice. And then we have that nice chicken breast there. So the chicken breast has the protein. It's got a lot of other nutrients as well. The protein will slow down digestion, and actually the calories in that chicken breast, about 30% of those will be burned up just digesting the protein, because it's a little harder to digest. Then we've got all those good vegetables there. They've got lots of different nutrients. They've got fiber. The rice has got some fiber and it's got some nutrients. This is a really metabolically kind of gold meal that we have here. And it's probably about 200 calories more than the dish you see on the right, which is just a bunch of pasta on a plate. There might be some butter on there. Can't really tell. That pasta there on the right is about 200 calories less, but what will happen when you eat it is that's going to break down very quickly during digestion, and the sugar in that pasta is going to hit your bloodstream just like a cake or a cookie, which is going to cause your insulin to go up, which causes fat storage to occur, and you're going to be hungry again relatively soon. Conversely, that plate there on the left, it's going to go nice and slow through your system. You're not going to get any big insulin surges or anything like that. You'll have stable energy, and you will have fed your body what it needs to function. A good example of using this, we have these pairing examples here at the bottom. If you eat an apple, it does have fiber, it does have a good bit of nutrition, but it is a relatively high source of sugar. And so when you eat the apple, it's going to break down and then hit your blood sugar. Well, if you put a little almond butter on the apple, the fat in the almond butter will slow the sugar in the apple from hitting your bloodstream. And that slow release of the sugar, that slow digestion of the fat, prevents the insulin spike. Oatmeal with Greek yogurt and berries instead of plain oatmeal. So we're actually adding calories, right? But it will make it more metabolically sound. So even though you're adding calories, if we looked at just weight loss alone, even though you're adding calories here, you're actually moving toward weight loss and away from weight gain, because it's not about the calories. It's about where those calories are coming from and how your body is going to use it. And so what we know very clearly is that we want nutrient density over calories. So calories are measuring energy. They don't measure nourishment. The same 600 calorie meal can be nutrient rich or nutritionally empty. Your body responds very differently. So we see this nutrient dense choice on the left. We got salmon, quinoa, roasted vegetables, avocado, It's packed with proteins. There's omega-3s, there's fiber, there's vitamins, there's minerals and antioxidants. This is just really good for you. If I could go back, I would choose a different photo. This one's really vegetable. I should say like lettuce heavy. I can tell there's probably a bed of lettuce under there. And nutrient dense does not mean lettuce. So too often people think they need to eat salads to be healthy. It's not true. So on the right, though, we have a calorie dense choice. Now, is there nutrition in here? Sure there is. That burger alone probably has 40 to 50 grams of protein. Unfortunately, on top of that, you got a lot of fats, and not the good kind, omega-6 fatty acids. We've got that cheese, and we see sauces. We see the fries that were almost certainly fried in a seed oil. If it was beef tallow, it might be a little better. So we're just getting a lot of calories, number one. So anytime that you consume, you take in a large number of calories, you'll get that insulin spike. Even if it's relatively healthy foods, not always, but even with relatively healthy foods, you can just get to where it's too many calories. And in this case, where we're getting them from is the oil in the fries. We're getting all these sauces and cheeses on the burgers. And then that bread is made from a processed, highly refined sugars, is basically what it is. So these two are going to hit your system completely differently. You're going to have two completely different effects. That meal on the right, you're not going to feel very good after that meal. The one on the left, you'll be good, you'll be ready to go, and you will have fed your body well across the board. So from there, we move into probiotics and gut health, supporting the inner ecosystem. This is so cool. So when we think about our body, when we think about the DNA in our body, what will really amaze you is to find out that half the DNA in your body is actually bacterial DNA. That's how much bacteria we have in our bodies. We're just like if you think of the planet Earth and human beings, our body, if we were to think of that as like the planet, then within that are bacteria. So these bacteria are with us from the time that we're born. And at that time actually is probably when they are at their best. So we want a diverse community of bacteria. So if we're going to look at a super healthy gut, it would have a wide variety of bacteria. It would have a healthy mucus layer on the intestines and so forth. What happens, though, is whether it's something related to lifestyle and environment, or we have to go on an antibiotic or something along those lines, then the diversity of the bacteria and the health of the bacteria and the type of bacteria in the gut will decline. And it's huge. This is no small thing. Even things like personality can be traced back to the bacteria that are populating the gut. We can take a person who is unhealthy and take a transplant of fecal matter from a very healthy person, put it into that person, and it will change. It will change them physically and substantially. It's really cool. A lot to learn about this, but what we want to understand for our benefits is how to work with this. So, number one, we have to feed the gut bacteria properly. And how are we going to do that? We're going to do it through all of that plant food I talked about. The more diverse the plant food, the more diverse the bacteria. And so when I say plant food, I'm talking about those fruits and vegetables and things like that. That is primarily what feeds the bacteria in your gut, is the fiber, that part that cannot be digested otherwise. Now, the bacteria in your gut will eat other things, and it's not ideal. So if you're not getting enough fiber, the bacteria can begin actually eating the lining of your digestive tract. Just super important that we're getting the right foods in there. So the foods that we put into the system, these are called prebiotics because this is what the bacteria eat. We also have probiotics, and a probiotic is bacteria. So you're taking a capsule with live bacteria in them or eating the food, fermented foods and so forth, but we're consuming the food, and this causes these bacteria to populate the gut. Unfortunately, many of them that we introduce, they're not going to last long. However, while they're there, they do have a positive impact on our health. You just have to continue to consume those bacteria. They may not set up permanent shop. So when we're talking about that, that reality that we have to have this healthy microbiome, and that our entire, the world these days is actually fighting against us in this regard. But we're going to start with those whole foods. And from there, we're going to add fermented foods. So these are whole foods that have been fermented. They've went through a process which has introduced more diversity to this bacteria. And then we're going to consume that. Well, that's a super great way to go about it. From time to time, we do need more help than that. And that's where probiotics can help. So this is when we're actually going to take a supplement with the bacteria in the supplement. A good time to do this would be after antibiotic use. So the antibiotics, you take those, it indiscriminately kills and ravages the bacteria throughout your system. And we want to introduce the more helpful, healthy versions of this bacteria so that our health improves. The problem is that if you are taking the antibiotic and then try to introduce the probiotic at the same time, the antibiotic is going to ravage the bacteria from the probiotic, which is going to cause a lot of digestive issues for you. So you would want to wait until after the antibiotic has been used, and then wait a week or two for your gut health to improve. So for the inflammation to go down. Now, a doctor might tell you something completely different, and in that case, you would listen to the doctor. But I'm going to tell you, do not introduce probiotics to a gut that is inflamed, because you're just going to feel miserable. You're going to feel really bad. It's not helpful to your gut. Allow it to heal just a bit and then go back to the probiotic use. It's about using the right tool at the right time. Daily supplementation with fiber is not necessary for everyone. Context matters. Focus on nourishing your existing microbiome through fiber, whole foods, and fermented options before you would reach for supplements. More is not better. Appropriateness matters. Now, we've talked about supplements a few times today. I just want to come back to them. So initially, we talked about the vitamin D, the magnesium, the zinc, and so forth. And now we just talked about supplements for fiber. So we just want to spend a little time here acknowledging that supplements are exactly as they sound. They are there to supplement an existing diet. They're not there. They're not designed to fill specific nutritional gaps. They're not to compensate for poor sleep. They're not going to compensate for inadequate nutrition or chronic stress or lack of movement. No pill is able to replace those foundational behaviors. But deficiencies are common, and they're common for a few different reasons. One is that our soil just simply does not have the nutrition in it that it used to have. So this comes from farming practices that were not long. There was no long-term thought. I think maybe just a bit more greed was the thought there. We are changing the way that we farm, but still at this time, from the use of pesticides and over farming a particular thing in a particular area, the soil does not have the same nourishment that it once did. And so the vegetables, the fruits and vegetables that grow from that soil, they too are not going to have quite as much nutrition. Now, when we go from that to the feed that's used for the livestock that we're consuming, we still have that same issue with just not quite as much nutrition making it. And so deficiencies are kind of common. And so we want to supplement where there is a deficiency. If you don't have a deficiency, you're really not going to notice a supplement that much. So if you're deficient in vitamin D, you would feel different taking vitamin D. But if you're not deficient, you're not necessarily going to feel any different about it. So we have our foundational habits first. So we're sleeping, we're moving regularly, we're managing our stress. And then, of course, nutrient-dense foods. We're eating whole foods to supply our essential nutrients. And then from there, where needed, whether it's to fill a gap or to further optimize a system. So when we go back to that wellness continuum, if we're using a supplement to fill the gap, we're just bringing ourselves to neutral, right? To baseline. There are some supplements that we would use to kind of push to optimize the systems that we currently have. And so we want to be sure that we're taking this approach. Any supplements that we consume, they've been third-party tested. Just be informed. So finally, we're looking to put everything into action. And probably the biggest thing to understand is that knowledge is not enough. Most people already know that vegetables are healthy and sugar isn't ideal. Yet knowing that doesn't consistently translate into doing anything. And that's because behavior change is not primarily about willpower or discipline. Behavior change is about understanding our biology and working with it. So we understand our hunger hormones and we understand blood sugar patterns and gut microbiome and the stress response. And we make decisions in such a way that we're working with our biology and it's working with us, not against us. Second is emotion. Food provides comfort, provides connection. We reward children with it. It's part of ritual. Emotional eating is a learned coping mechanism. Changing these behaviors requires addressing the underlying needs, not just the behavior. And finally, environment. More so even, I think, than biology or emotion, your environment is really important to the way that your nutrition unfolds. What's available, what's accessible, what's visible. This, of course, is shaping your the way that you're going to ingest these foods considerably. But more than that, your environment is the things that you hear and the people that you're around. It's the music you listen to, the movies you watch. Your environment dictates how you feel. And from there, your decisions just kind of flow naturally. So if sustainable change is going to work with biology, emotion, and environment. We want simple strategies, not complex plans to work with the biology, our emotions, and our environment. One of the best ways to approach getting the right optimal amount of nutrition is meal planning. Now, when I say meal planning, most people think, oh my gosh, I don't have time for this. Listen, meal planning gives you freedom. This structure is reducing decision fatigue. So contrary to what it might seem like, whenever you just take a little time at the beginning of your day or at the end of one day to look at the next day, and you just think, what's my schedule like tomorrow? What am I doing? Who will I be around? Where will I be? Just put a little thought into what you're going to eat. Do you need to take something with you? Do you need to pull up the menu at a restaurant you're going to meet friends at? Whatever it is, just look at the day to come and then plan realistically. So we're not trying to plan the absolute best day that ever occurred. We're trying to make good decisions that work for you in the moment. So if you know you're going to be under stress and a piece of chocolate's going to come in handy, then put that piece of chocolate into the overall approach for the day, because we're looking for that overall stability. And so there's ways to do that. Simple framework: choose 3 to 5 protein sources you enjoy, rotate through favorite vegetable combinations, keep 2 to 3 easy meals on repeat, prep components, not full meals, and allow flexibility within your structure. The goal is not perfection. It's to remove friction from healthy choices so that they become the path of least resistance. A second very effective strategy is mindful eating. So this just simply means that you're paying attention whenever you're eating. So you're noticing your physical hunger cues versus emotional hunger cues, just acknowledging what it is that's happening. Are you eating because you need fuel? Or is it because you're bored or stressed or you're following some sort of a routine? Just be aware. Don't try to make these huge changes. Awareness is very effective. And then eat with presence. So don't be distracted. Taste your food. Notice textures. Notice flavors and satisfaction. It's not about being perfect. Again, you just want to be more present to what is happening. And then feedback. Pay attention to how food affects you 1 to 2 hours after eating it. Check out your energy levels, your focus, your hunger, your mood. Your body's going to provide this constant feedback, but you just have to be paying attention. And what we're paying attention to there are cravings. Cravings are information. They're signals. They're not failures. So think of it almost like a check engine light or check oil light or check your brakes light on a car. You don't want to put a sticker over it, right? Is it bothersome? Sure, but it's bothersome because there's an issue. So once you get some evidence, and once you start having a craving, then you can begin to be curious and figure out, is this a blood sugar thing? So did I eat something that was a little higher in processed carbohydrates and cause some sort of a trigger, some sort of a crash? And let's think about that. Or have I not eaten? So pay attention to blood sugar, pay attention to sleep deprivation. So when you don't get quite as much sleep, you are going to have increase in hunger hormones, a decrease in your satiety hormones, and you're going to want foods that provide fast fuel. Unfortunately, that fast fuel will be very quickly removed from the system and you'll be hungry again. So another, the craving could be telling you that you need more sleep. Can also be stress related. So when you begin to feel stress that's kind of challenging your ability to handle it, cortisol will elevate to help you with that. But it also comes with this really intense craving for comfort food. So stress eating is a biological response. It's you have the stress, the cortisol goes up, you're going to have a craving for comfort food. It's just the way it is. So if there's a way to minimize stress, and definitely you'll hear me talk over and over again about friction. This where things are not easy to do. Friction is all over our culture right now. So pay attention to ways that you can remove friction from your life. And finally, underfueling. Almost every person I talk to that are looking at their weight health, they have this programmed desire to just eat way less than they should. So it would be like, it's just a little on its head. So food, we are meant to ingest food, and our body will use about 2,000 calories of energy every day. It needs this stuff, and restricting it and skipping it and depriving yourself. We know that fasting can be effective. We also know that fasting can be ineffective. So it really depends on you. But please keep in mind that if you are not putting the nutrition into your body that it needs, you're going to have cravings, and they're going to be most likely cravings for things that are not very healthy when it's the healthy stuff that you need. So just pay attention. Don't fight your cravings with willpower. Address the underlying issue. You have so much more agency and efficacy here than you realize. We want stable blood sugar, adequate sleep, manage or remove stress. Right? Don't have stress that you don't have to have. And properly fueling your body. This dramatically reduces cravings naturally. And at the end of the day, the entire point of this presentation is to understand inflammation and how it impacts your aging. So if we go back to that triad of aging, we had the inflammation, the cellular senescence, and the mitochondrial dysfunction. Well, inflammation is the sum of those three. And so how we're going to fight this, number one, we fight it with clarity. We have to understand why certain choices matter. And this knowledge with clarity, right? It's not just noise. It's a way to approach life and make good decisions. But we start with clarity. From there, we go to consistency. So these things that are good for us, We're going to repeat them over and over. We're going to add them in everywhere that we can. We're not looking for perfection, but we're looking for patterns. We want these healthier patterns of eating there. So at each meal, we're trying to get that plant food. At each meal, we're getting that protein. We're eating regularly throughout the day. We're getting the sleep that we need and so forth. And then the final component is compassion. You really have to understand that progress isn't linear. You have to be patient with yourself. Your body is an amazing creation. The things that it does every second of every day they are amazing. But being hard on yourself as you navigate the proper way to fuel your body is not going to be helpful. So we want to be compassionate with ourselves. The goal is not to follow a perfect diet. It's to create a sustainable pattern that supports your energy, reduces inflammation, and stabilizes metabolism. This will allow your body to do what it does best, to heal, to adapt, to thrive. So we start from where we are and we begin building one habit at a time and just trust that process. How do you identify the habit? Just think about, of all the things that we've talked about in this presentation, what is one thing that you could do that would have the biggest impact on everything else? And then that one thing is what you focus on, and you do it in a smart way, right? You find the specific time of day, the day of the week. You're very, very specific about when you're going to do this particular thing, and then you do it. This nutrition lays the foundation for longevity, for resilience, and for healing. The choices you make about what you eat ripple through every system in your body, influencing not just how you feel today, but how well you age and adapt over time. Thank you for joining us for today's Living Well Longer series. Our next series seminar will be Living Well Longer, Brain Health and Neuroprotection. This will be on Thursday, February 19th. Each session does build on the last, and this is because the body works as an integrated system. At our next seminar, we'll be exploring how to protect and enhance cognitive function across the lifespan. The topics will include neuroplasticity and the brain's capacity to adapt, BDNF and growth factors that support neural health, more about the gut-brain axis and its influence on mood and cognition, and the importance of understanding blood flow and vascular health as foundations for brain function, and recognizing early signs of cognitive impairment. Thank you again for joining me. I'll see you next time.